what has brought us here is the realization that we need to be talking to our parents about what we're seeing in the schools and with our children. And it is scary. And as you saw when you were looking at both these places, things that look normal are not normal. You are our power in helping others understand and know what we're dealing with and what we're seeing. So even though we're talking about vaping, it goes into other angles, and it is truly harming our children. It is hurting our children. It hurts their thought processes. They become paranoid, and it is about all kinds of things of fitting in, social pressure, and thinking that if you vape, it makes you better, it makes you cool. And we just want to do an unveiling for you so that you can go out and talk to other people. So as you listen today, know that we're here out of our hearts and our love for our children, and we need our parents. We need our parents, we need our community members, we need you to be in lockstep with us, talking to our children, feeling like we all care. And you'll hear some personal stories, but the biggest thing is we are firing you up with information so that you can go out and say, hey, they're trying to addict your children. Hey, they're trying to do this. So we're here as a team with Dr. Elliott and the city school system. We want to fight this together because it affects all of our children. It's across not just in Bradley County and Cleveland City Schools, it is everywhere. And we have a misnomer that vaping is a good alternative to smoking when it is not. And there's so much we don't know, so we're here with partnering with ATS The Bridge, with the health department, trying to educate you. We want you to ask questions. When I went through this, I was actually horrified that the things that were out there. So today we hope that you gain knowledge and that we can spread that knowledge. Made me angry that our kids are being targeted by commercials, social media, everything that's out there is targeting our kids, and we have to fight for our kids. So I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Elliott. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Dr. Cash. I'm Jeff Elliott, the Chief of Staff for Cleveland City Schools, and again, I echo many of the things that Dr. Cash has already said, and we welcome you. It's exciting to see all of you come out on a morning like this. It's amazing. A couple of weeks ago when we were talking about getting the word out, we really wanted to see parents coming on board and helping us with this situation that we're talking about today. We have 5 C's that we really rally around in Cleveland City Schools, and some of those are around obviously the academic area, but one of those 5 C's is around character. And we really have to take a look at what are we doing to equip our own children, our students, with the understanding, with reality of what's going on, so that they can make wise decisions in life. And wise decisions being able to say no to the challenges that they're facing, whether it's in all the way from elementary to high school level. And so today, that's what this is about, is for us coming together as a community, not only from our own staff who we continue to share this message with, and we have plans to roll out more information with our staff as the months come ahead of us here. But today is to come together as a community with our families, as parents of these children that come in and out of the doors facing the challenges that they face. Today, the challenge and focus that we're about is what ATS The Bridge message is today, and we're here to really take a look at that, and I appreciate your support. It's just amazing to see parents involved like you guys, and so welcome. We're glad you're here.
Good morning. Good morning. First off, thank you so much for being here, and what a beautiful thing it is to see our schools as a whole working together, both school systems, because this is going to take everybody. This is not an easy topic. It's a pretty heavy topic. If I get passionate, I'm not going to apologize because I'm a dad. I've got 4 kids. I've got a senior, I've got a freshman, I've got a 7th grader, and I've got a 4th grader. So a lot of this stuff I'm looking at through the lens of a dad. But we have a problem, not just in our community, but nationwide. And so today I'm going to present some information, show some video. It's going to be like drinking from a fire hydrant at times. but that's because it is a lot. There's a lot to take in. Now I'd encourage you, before you leave, stop by our table over here, and we have a lot of other products that you just honestly need to be aware from what's over 21 and they want to make choices and consume some of these products. You know, and at the end of the day, that's on them. But I'm talking about kids. We're talking about minors. We're talking about young people getting set up for a life of addiction and struggle, health issues, opportunities taken away from them. And that should not be. And because of that, it's important that we rally together, that we learn, that we support one another, and that we do what we can to help make sure that our community is as safe as possible for our kids. And that's going to take all of us. It's going to take partnerships. It's going to take everyone working together. And I think overall what it's going to take is, you know, hey, laws being passed are great. We got to have more of those. We got to have more doors kicked in and drug busts. Those have to happen as well. But those alone are not going to be enough to solve the problem. I believe personally that what it's going to take is a younger generation that chooses different, that sees the problem for what it is, that gets tired of going to funerals, that gets tired of seeing their friends that were passionate about one thing and then all of a sudden lose motivation because now all they're worried about is getting high, tired of seeing families get wrecked, tired of seeing people get in trouble. I think a generation needs to get sick of it and stand up and actually do something different, say something different, choose something different. Because right now they're absolutely 100% being preyed upon by an industry that has zero regulation. And it's a costly toll. When you think about the long-term effects and the way that nicotine affects the body, that THC affects the body, and we're talking about young developing bodies, that brains that are going to be developing until 25, bodies that are growing in real time right now that are consuming chemicals that are adversely affecting them. What's healthcare going to look like in 20 years? What's the economy going to look like in 20 years? What are our job situations and employees, what's that going to look like in 20 years? So it's not just about today, it's about the future as well. And so thank you for choosing to be here to take the time as we're rallying the community to stand up. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to show you a video because there's some students in our town that we're so proud of. Because despite the facts, and this is going to be overwhelming at times, because of the sheer amount of the numbers and the volume of usage, but not everybody's doing it. Not every student is. Not every student is involved in this. And in fact, it's probably just as important for the student that's not involved in any sort of nicotine or THC or any sort of drug use overall, for them to hear and understand, because they're the ones that need to stand up and talk to their sphere of influence, the ones that need to set the example. And we have some amazing high school students in this county, in this city, that have chosen to stand up. They're ATS ambassadors, and I think across the board between Cleveland, Bradley, and Walker Valley, we're close to 200 strong as far as high schoolers that are choosing to stand up. This video is going to showcase some of them. It's a video that premiered at the Walker Valley Bradley game, and pay attention to the stats. You're going to see faces you probably recognize, but listen to what they're saying as well.
Opioid addiction and the spread of fentanyl are on the rise at an alarming rate.
Every 5 to 7 minutes,
Someone in the United States dies of a drug overdose.
that's over 107,000 people in a year.
In a year. That's like wiping out all.
Of Cleveland and Bradley County.
According to the American Lung Association, each day
Over 6,100 students under the age of 18 vape for the very first time. We're talking about student nicotine addiction.
student nicotine addiction.
Student nicotine addiction and THC use.
Vaping is not a safe alternative to cigarettes. Vaping is just as addictive, just as dangerous. Vaping can be deadly.
Let that sink in.
It's time to stop pretending like this isn't a problem.
It's time to stand up. It's time to stand up.
It's time to stand up.
For your family.
For your friends.
For your teammates.
For your teammates.
It's time.
It's time.
It's time to stand up.
For those who don't have the strength to stand alone. It's time to stand up
I won't let substance abuse dictate my story.
because this is my life.
This is my life. My life. My life.
And this is your life.
Your life.
This is your life.
We're tired of drugs ending our dreams and destroying our generation, so we're taking a stand. Will you stand with us?
When I told you there were personal stories, so when my son, who is 24 now, was a sophomore at Bradley, his best friend overdosed. And so we got the call about, probably about 7 a.m. From his mother asking, do you know what he took? Do you know this? Do you know this? The boys did not know. All they knew was that he had chosen a different set of friends. He wasn't hanging out with them anymore. And that rocked my world, but my son has never gotten over it. He is very particular about who his friends are now. He still breaks down. And so that was more than, I mean, it was devastating. But great kid, athlete, the best, most fun person you could ever be around. And what it started with was he had hurt his back playing football. So there was never any intention on his part to do harm, but that rocked our world. Then you come back around to now and talking to my team about why are we getting all these kids in disciplinary hearings? We've never seen this before. What is going on? And then we ran the numbers. Over 70% of the kids coming into disciplinary hearings were using vapes with THC in them. 70% of my referrals, that's what was happening. And that's when I said, we have to do something. This is insane. We as a community and we as a school system have to make a stand. So when we started looking at not only the numbers, but how, and working with ATS, the bridge, about how they disguise it, that's when we said we have to do this together. So what I want you to know, and I'm sure that Dr. Elliott has to think, what rocked my world ended in my household, was in my household. And I would have never, ever predicted that. I mean, you know, Jace was in my house raiding my refrigerator and all the things, and I never once thought the kid was doing anything. So now with the vaping, it's hidden even more. And that's what we want to unveil for you today, is the hidden dangers that we don't know about and don't understand and wouldn't recognize it. So as you take this in today, please don't think it could not hit your house, because it can. And honestly, it probably is. If it's not your children, it's your friends, the friends of your children. So as Jerry goes through this, think about, one day Jace is running through my house acting crazy, and then I get a phone call that says he's overdosing. And there's nothing that all we can do is educate you, educate our children. That's why you're here today. You are our most valuable asset. You are the parents of our children, and you have contacts. So please, please listen to everything that is said today. And then your next step, where do I go with this? What do I do with this? Because we don't want it to stop just with this one piece. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Cash, and that's so true. Because when you think about the sheer numbers, our country as a whole has a problem. In fact, if we went around the room, I think probably somewhere in most families we could point to some sort of addiction that has caused a lot of problems. You think about the state of our nation. I like to use Neyland Stadium as an example. If you've ever been to Neyland Stadium and you've sat in one of the biggest stadiums in America, especially when they're playing, you know, Florida, Alabama, Georgia, a big rivalry game, and they're packing almost 102,000 people into that stadium. The population of a city, you think about that, you would still have to add about 5,000 more people to the field to equal the 107,000 lives, American lives, that were lost last year because of overdose. So when you break that down, every 5 to 7 minutes, somebody somewhere in our country is dying of an overdose. Now I get it that a lot of that number would be people that have used for years and finally their body said no. Finally, they gave out and the drugs took them. A large number, casual partiers. Large number as well, especially young people that never used drugs before. Here's the thing that you have to be aware of as a parent. It's so easy to sit on Snapchat, to hit a button, order something from somebody that a student has never met, don't know the real name, don't even know what they look like, pay them through Venmo, something shows up at an undisclosed location, and they feel like they have what they need. This is what we found, but there's a lot of kids that, when it comes down to it, they're trying to deal with pain. And let's face it, our world has a lot of pain, especially having come through the pandemic and different, it's complicated a lot of things, and you've got a lot of students that are carrying a lot of hurts, a lot of bags, that they don't really know how to unpack. And so you have some students that say it's Friday night, and they're like, you know what, I just don't want to feel anything, so I'm going to order something that can help me numb the pain. Well, statistically, when you look at it, if you have 10 pills that have been bought off the street, 6 to 7 of those pills, possibly 8, depending on where you're at, are going to have fentanyl in it, statistically. And of those pills that, up to 8 pills, you don't know which one of those pills is going to have enough fentanyl to kill 3 or 4 people. You see, a lethal dose of fentanyl would fit on the sharpened tip of this pencil, about 2 milligrams. If you had a gram worth, about a Splenda packet worth, it would kill everybody in this room and more. It's very, very powerful stuff. You see, when we started talking about the opioid epidemic years ago and the problems that we were facing as a nation, we were talking about fentanyl that was 50 to 100 times stronger than morphine, medicinal use on a drip, helping people that had severe injuries, pain management, that kind of medicinal fentanyl. It has changed. Just like the iPhone in your pocket, drugs are like technology. You think you've got the latest and the greatest, but somebody's already working on something. So the latest technology that we get is always obsolete. It's the same thing with drugs. As soon as you think you've got a handle on it, as soon as you think you understand, it changes. So fentanyl now is like a tree with branches. There's about 40 different analogs, and those analogs are about 20,000 times stronger than morphine now. And it's getting cut into all the drugs, and the death toll is rising because of it. And I have to talk about opioids, I have to talk about fentanyl, because statistically, within this number, we're not going to touch the problem in America if we don't start talking about vaping. Because studies have shown that the likelihood of a minor of using opioids later in life skyrockets if they use THC before the age of 18. And with 6,100 kids, not a month, not a week, but a day, vaping for the very first time. I didn't believe it, but the American Lung Society researched it. 6,100 kids a day vaping for the very first time. A lot of that's going to be nicotine. You better believe there's going to be a lot of THC in that as well. And with the sheer numbers of usage of minors, kids under 18, using synthetic marijuana, because you got to understand, think more Breaking Bad and not homegrown. This isn't natural, this is a cocktail of chemicals. Yes, it has THC in it. But this is stuff that is powerful, it is mind-altering, it is body-changing. And kids, minors, getting their hands on this, what's the world going to look like in 20 years? Because things are obviously at a point where we've got a problem. Because these lives that have been lost, it's not because of car wrecks, cancer, it's not because of heart attacks, it's not because of violent crime. These people didn't even go to war. It's because they made a choice. And that choice ultimately ended their life. So when you hear terms like one pill can kill, these slogans that are out there, yes, absolutely. Because when it comes specifically to things like pills, Percocets and Oxy and even Adderall, drugs that are being abused when they're bought off the street, it's kind of like baking cookies. All right, old school, got the batter, throw the chocolate chips in, you mix it up, you put it on the cookie sheet. Once you pull those cookies out, one of those cookies is going to have 5 or 6 chocolate chips, another one's going to have 8 or 9. You just don't know what you're going to get. So kids are literally playing Russian roulette with their lives when they get involved in this stuff. So we'll have some quick facts you can read there. Some of this stuff I've already talked about, but we're going to start addressing nicotine and the vaping issue. So this brand, most of you have probably seen this, and you know the look and the shape of it because this Elf bar, they actually just got sued, so they're name has to change. I think it's called EV Create now. But this is an Elf Bar BC 5000 and it's peach watermelon flavored. Great, imagine that. This little canister right here is probably one of the most popular brands. If you hold this up in a room full of high schoolers, they all know what it is. If you hold it up in front of a room of middle schoolers, they're all going to chuckle because they know what it is. If you hold this up, and we've done it in a room full of elementary school students, they know what it is. These hands shoot up. They're like, that's the one my dad uses. That's the one my mom uses. They've seen it. Vaping has become part of culture. We've all been at the red light and we've seen the smoke building out of the car next to us, or walking through the parking lot of Food City and somebody takes a hit and their head disappears in a cloud of smoke, and you've got the white smoke, you got the smell and all that kind of stuff. The amazing thing is we've kind of given it a pass because we look at it as not quite as offensive as regular cigarette smoke. We look at it as something that, well, the smoke dissipates quickly and it doesn't smell quite as bad, and they're small devices, and a lot of people know how to have the smoke dissipate within their lungs before they breathe it out, and we kind of give it a pass. The problem is that a lot of people think that this is healthier for you than regular smoking. So follow me on this. This is not healthier than smoking. I don't care what billboard you've seen, what YouTube channel, I don't care what you've heard. Think about it this way. This one canister right here has the same amount of cigarettes, according to the New York Times, as 590 cigarettes. The nicotine content is the same. So somebody that's over 21, all right, and let's say they're going to purchase this product, they might work through it in 2 weeks or however long it's going to take them to puff through this Elf Bar. You put this in the hands of a 14-year-old or a 13-year-old that has now understood this to be the image of edgy teenage life. They understand this is a vibe now, and they found a $20 bill and they buy it off of somebody that's peddling these things. Guess what they're going to do? They're burning through these things in about 5 days, less than a week. We know kids that have done it. So you think about that amount of nicotine, around 30 packs of cigarettes going into the body of a kid in less than a week. You talk about being set up for addiction. You talk about getting sick. You talk about this is now something that is going to alter their life in some way, shape, or form. When addiction sets in, it's no joke, especially nicotine addiction, because nicotine addiction affects the entire brain. That's why it's so hard for people to quit smoking. Coming through January, what's January 1? It's International I'm Finally Going to Quit Day, right? People that have been smoking for years, they're like, cold turkey, I'm going to do it. January 1, here we go. They get through half the day, and all of a sudden the cravings hit. They got to find something to do with their hands. They got to keep popping candy in their mouth. They got to stay busy. Why? Because their body is going through withdrawals at this point. If they make it to day 2, they're probably going to have a headache and they're going to have the shakes. Why? Because their body is in full-on revolt because of the lack of nicotine. If they white-knuckle it all the way to day 3, they're probably going to be mean as a snake because their body is now screaming out for the drug that it's used to having. Think about it in the body of a kid. We know parents that have found vapes on their kids, taken them away, only to find their child later in a corner crying and shaking because the nicotine's been taken away. Not knowing what to do, run to Walmart, they're getting patches, getting lozenges, getting gum, trying to curb the reaction that they're getting, only to just barely touch what their body's needing at the point of withdrawal at that time, because the nicotine has been so fierce. We know kids that have slept with these under their pillow, they told us, because they can't wake up, they wake up in the middle of the night and don't know if they're going to the bathroom or they're needing a hit of their vape. They wake up and they take a hit. It's become muscle memory, it's become addiction. We know kids that'll sit in their cars before school, take big, long, heavy drags of these things, hoping to get through to lunch so they can get back out to their car again to take a few more hits, hopefully to get through the rest of the school day. That's addiction. And the thing that I've found, and this is why I believe this is not any healthier for you than smoking regular cigarettes, because when it comes to regular cigarettes nowadays, you gotta try to smoke. You can't smoke indoors. Most of us are old enough to remember the smoking section and how they're not there anymore. you can't smoke indoors in a public place anymore. You've got to try to smoke. Most people, you know, if they're going to smoke in their car, maybe. If they're going to smoke in their house, maybe. A lot of people are going to step outside and they got to do the work of lighting up that cigarette and finishing it there outside with a smoke break. It's not so with this, because it's on the go. It's in the car, it's out of the car, it's while you're walking, it's in the mall, it's in a restaurant, hopefully not at school, it's at the ballpark, wherever. This is now not just a smoke break, this is a vibe. I've got my keys, I got my phone, got my wallet, got my vape. It's part of people's everyday carry. You don't believe me? Find somebody that vapes and go hide it from them and watch them freak out. You ever lost your iPhone? You're scurrying around trying to find it? Watch somebody that loses their vape. Because it's not just a nicotine addiction, it's now an emotional attachment. It's a habitual attachment. The comfort, the muscle memory of taking hits, carrying it with you. It's become a comfort, it's become part of people's everyday life and everyday carry. And the thing is, these aren't going away. It's part of culture now. You see them everywhere. We ask elementary school kids all the time, hey, have you seen these before? And they'll tell you, yeah, we see them at the house, or, you know, my granddad does it, or whoever. You know, we ask them, have you seen them in, you know, in parking lots? Yeah. Have you seen them at the park? Yeah. You know, what we have to do because of fentanyl, because of other just nasty drugs, because if you can liquefy it, you can vape it. We have to tell little kids, if you see one of these, the safest thing for you to do is don't touch it. Because nowadays, you don't know what's in it. You don't even know what's on it. So stay away from it. The crazy thing is, we get calls from counselors at schools that are saying, hey, come talk to our class about vapes because our second graders are bringing them to school. Second and third grade. It's crazy, but when you think about it, here's the thing. People that vape tend to vape a lot. And people that vape tend to have a lot of vapes. Why? Because they're upgrading from peach mango watermelon to pina colada, or whatever flavor. They're getting a different device, getting a different shape. They start collecting multiple vapes. And the ones that they're not using tend to find their way to drawers, get left in cars, on nightstands. Little hands tend to find them. And because this has now become a vibe, and because this has now become a status symbol, all right, a teenage rebellion, little kids see that because they see mom, dad, they see big brother, big sister, they see it everywhere that they're out and about. And now, all of a sudden, hey, if I get my hands on one of these, I'm going to go show it to everybody at school and let them know, hey, I got one. So we've got a problem, and it's not going away. So one of the best things we can do is educate. But here's the thing. We've got a problem in our community. I'm about to show you this video, and ATS The Bridge and all of our SROs in the area, we came together and we were like, let's take the vapes that were confiscated and let's do something with them. Now, they already destroyed a bunch of them, but we got our hands on the vapes that were confiscated from county and city schools, put them together, and it was about 86 pounds worth. That's a lot. Just under 700. That's a lot. It was enough vapes to line the Walker Valley football field end zone to end zone. Pretty striking visual when you think about what's taken from our kids in our communities enough to cover 100 yards worth. What gets me the most is each one of these represents a story, represents a kid, represents a minor that had a negative interaction with a teacher, an SRO, or an administrator, or a coach, because they were using, had it on them, or had intent to sell. And in that number, there was an awful lot of nicotine, but there was a whole lot of THC as well. So if we don't think it's in our community, it is. And we have got to wake up. Because this stuff it's dangerous. And more studies are coming out on the dangers. The way that it's affecting brains and bodies. Because this stuff is unregulated, it's untested. The cocktail of chemicals in here, it's all stuff that does not belong in the human body. When you think about the misnomer that this is just flavored water vapor, don't think water vapor, think more like hairspray. If you got that old school white rain bottle from like back in the day that you're covering your hair with, think about something a little bit more like that, a chemical cocktail that's like aerosol, and think about your lungs getting coated with that time and time again. At some point your body is going to say no. But it's affecting not just memory and focus, but emotional stability. Like, we need any more emotional issues in our world today. Physical stamina. Realize this, that athletes tend to vape a lot. If you've got an athlete in your home, talk to them. A lot of them think it's going to give them some energy or an edge or whatever, or just take the edge off after practice. If you've got an athlete in your house, remind them you can't perform if you can't breathe. I know high schoolers that know, they play on football teams here in town, they talk about the guys that they know that vape, because at the beginning of the season they can run, at the end of the season they can't finish wind sprints. It's affecting them. You also can't perform if you get kicked off a team. So talk to your kids. A lot of students, like when we talk about vaping, we ask them, you know the risks and the issues, why do you do it? And hands go up and they start using words like stress and anxiety and depression. A lot of times they'll use the word trauma, believe it or not. The words that get verbalized back to us all the time. What we don't hear a whole lot of, terms like peer pressure, friends. So often we're finding that it's not necessarily all the external stuff as much as it's a reaction to what's going on inside. So we tell kids, it's like, you've got to get the help that you need. If you've got things that you got to talk through, you've got things that you got to work through, get the help you need. Don't get in a destructive cycle of trying to cope by yourself, because a lot of times that just leads to problems. But they think that this is going to help with anxiety, but really when you get addiction involved, it's not going to help anxiety, it's going to actually increase it. Because when you're addicted and your body needs it and your body doesn't have it, it's going to be crying out for it, which means there's going to be cravings, there's going to be frustration, there's going to be that jittery feeling that is going to agitate them until they can take another hit. So there's a misnomer that this is actually going to help decrease their anxiety and help them just kind of chill out. But it's not true, because the amount of nicotine that they're taking into their body is a fast path to addiction. When you look at these common chemicals that are in these devices, if you look at this one here, diacetyl, it's been linked to popcorn lung, which is basically the scarring and the narrowing of the airways in the lungs. Very, very dangerous condition. The rest of it, we talked a lot about nicotine. Nicotine is probably the healthiest thing in there for you, surprisingly. Because the rest of it, like acrolein, you're going to find like weed killer. You're going to find substances like formaldehyde, which is pretty terrible. Nickel, tin, and lead, heavy metals like that. Chemicals that you're going to find in car exhaust like benzene. None of this goes in our body. None of this should be thrashing our lungs, especially kids. Especially kids. And one of the problems is you've got oversight over areas like, big tobacco. They're being watched, and there's government regulations saying you can have this, you can not have that. This is what goes in this. The vaping industry is wide open. So you can take those products, and we've done it, we've tested multiple. What it says on the box is not what's actually in them. There are no rules. And so what happens, we find, is you got some kids that think, oh, I've got my brand, and I know what I can handle, I know what I can take. And what happens is they might use a few devices, but then really have an effect. Same device, all right, same brand, but there's a different chemical makeup in it, and it hits them funny. None of it's regulated, none of it's safe. If you look at this, that's what...
Anti-Vaping is now telling his story as a warning to others. Paula Farah sat down with him, and this is quite a story. Good morning, Paula.
Quite a story, yes. Good morning, Robin. Good morning, everyone. Daniel Ament was a healthy high school student who loved to sail, swim, and run. Then he started vaping. His doctors say his lungs were destroyed beyond repair. This morning, 17-year-old Daniel Ament is recovering from a double lung transplant, believed to be the first related to vaping. About how often were you vaping?
Maybe a few times during the day, but like at lunchtime if I was with people, but it would only be like hitting it once.
Do you buy the vaping pens?
I never bought ones. It started off just whenever I'd be with my friends on the weekends, I would just hit theirs.
He began vaping in December of 2018 using mainly cartridges and occasional THC pods. And in early September, he started feeling ill.
I had a really bad headache. That was my main thing. And I just felt really sick.
His mom, Tammy, had an idea the illness was vaping related.
On the way to the hospital, I said, are we still going with the fact that you've never vaped or you don't vape? And he said, maybe.
Daniel didn't come clean until he was admitted to the hospital.
It's really frustrating, and I know that the kids, I think they cover for each other.
Once in the hospital, he rapidly declined and was put on life support for 29 days. When they're telling you what happened and that you were days from dying.
Yeah, that still hasn't really processed yet. It's really hard to believe that that happened, but everyone's told me that one day they just said he has a 10% chance to live.
On October 15th, after doctors told his family death was imminent, Daniel was given a double lung transplant. In these dramatic before and afters he shared with us, Daniel's lost over 40 pounds. He showed us the surgery scars on his neck and across his chest. When the doctors told you that this was because of vaping, you were skeptical.
Yeah, I didn't really believe it at first. It just didn't make sense because why didn't it happen to other people that had been vaping for years? Why didn't it happen to someone else close to me that I was hitting their stuff? So how did the chemicals affect me and not them?
This is your new normal. He says while he is grateful to be alive, his new life is forever altered.
Like I have to take over 20 medications a day. I have to wear a mask in public for at least a year. I can't travel for a year. Opportunities that I would have had before, like going in the military, I can't do that anymore.
You feel like you've been given a second chance?
Yeah, for sure. And I want to make the most out of that and make sure no one else makes the same mistakes I did.
And Daniel's lifelong dream of being a Navy SEAL won't happen now because of the transplant, but he's using his voice. He's launched a nonprofit called Fight for Wellness. He wants to advocate for other youth in the country.
So his story, one, no kid should ever have to go through that. But if you caught what he was saying, he said, one, he didn't even believe it when he got sick, that it had to do with vaping. He was an athlete, smart kid, had big plans. You know, he wanted to be a Navy SEAL. That's, you know, necessity for that is going to be, you know, elite with your mind and your body. So he was only a casual user, you know, on the weekends or at lunchtime, using everybody else's stuff, as he put it. So when he got sick, he didn't believe it because he was like, if I'm getting sick, they should be getting sick too. So it shouldn't be because of that. But he gets sick enough to go to the hospital and the doctor says, hey, we've got to operate now if you want to live. Give him a 10% chance to live. I mean, you think about a child having to have their lungs taken out of their chest. And then a cadaver's lungs put in and just hoping that it'll work, hoping that it'll take. That's a scary moment. His life completely changed. His dreams surrendered. Now you saw the cocktail of pills that he has to take just to live. It's a heavy price to pay. And so we tell kids this, that when it comes to this stuff, why take the risk? Because at this point in their young lives, they don't know what their body can and can't handle. They don't know. And there's kids that have been vaping for a while, and they seem to be okay, and they might be okay until they're not. And when they're not, it's going to hit hard. It's going to look like a fever spiking all of a sudden, and nonstop vomiting uncontrollably. They might feel okay, they might think like, okay, you know, I've got this under control, I can manage it. But you can't put this stuff into your body and it not affect you. Now there's things that we can't explain. Everybody's got that uncle that's like 90 years old, he's smoked 3 packs a day since he was 7, sits in the sun on a tractor all day, he's like a preserved strip of leather, it's like nothing can kill him. You can't explain that. You also can't explain why somebody smokes for 2 years and dies of lung cancer. You just don't know how your body's going to react. So our message to kids a lot of times is like, don't even take the risk. Don't go there. So when it comes to the next big problem, we talked a lot about nicotine. We've got to get into THC. And like I said, this vial, if you ever hear anybody mention a cart or a cartridge, that's what this is. This vial is filled full of oil that has THC, which is the chemical in marijuana that makes you high, in combination with other chemicals that attaches to oftentimes a battery pack that turns it into a vapable product. Here's something you have to know as a parent, okay? Whether or not your son or daughter is using or not, if they have this in their possession, they have the cartridge, if they have the battery, they have the charger head, typically 3 parts to a dab pen. Whether they're using or not, this is drug paraphernalia. And they're going to get in trouble. So make sure that you're drilling into them. Don't hold on to it for anybody. Don't pass it to anybody. Don't receive anything before school. Don't pass it along after school. Don't exchange money. Don't do anything like that that's going to have anything to do with these dab pens, because this is drug paraphernalia and it's handled very seriously. Nobody wants their kid to have to go to juvenile court. We try to get this message along to kids, you know, because THC is very serious. Now, it comes in a lot of different forms. Some of them tend to look like nicotine vapes, could be easily mistaken. If you see one and you're like, is that nicotine or is that THC? A lot of times, look for the window. Because just about every THC vape, now I'm not going to say 100% across the board, but just about every single one, you're going to be able to see the cartridge. You're going to be able to see the cartridge, even if it's just a little window in there. That's going to help you a lot of times differentiate between nicotine and THC. That way, in case you come across one and you're like, I wonder, you know, what's the brand? 1, Google it, it'll tell you. But 2, take a look at it. And if you see a window where you can see the oil in there, oftentimes that is going to be a THC vape. Now, when it comes to THC, this is something that you got to pay attention to. This is powerful stuff. When I was in junior high, all right, back in 1995, because I'm old, right? Back then, when people would be like, "Oh, it's just weed. Is it illegal?" Yeah, but it was looked at as that stoner drug where you would, you know, smoke a bowl, go eat Taco Bell, and giggle with your friends type thing, where it's just kind of like smoke yourself dumb. Under 4% on average. This is coming from what was seized by the DEA on average through the years. Back in 1995, under 4% potency, strength. So the strength of the THC that's being consumed, the potency of it, under 4%. If you get to 21, and obviously we're in 24, but it takes data a while to come out and be processed. If you look at that, it's over 15% now. That's a lot. That's a whole lot. And then when you start looking at the data that's saying anything above 10% potency THC starts to change the human brain. If you read these stats, the #1 risk factor for adolescent opioid misuse is having ever used marijuana in their lifetime. We talked about that. After 3 years of first trying marijuana versus opioids, marijuana has a much higher percentage of addiction in adolescents. The predominant predictor of adult opioid misuse is having used marijuana before the age of 18. Now this is coming from the RX Summit in Atlanta, a national summit on illicit drug use. Cannabis psychosis, we talked about the human brain changing. Anything above 10% THC constant usage begins to affect the human brain. We're seeing 32.2% of patients with a substance-induced psychosis converted to either bipolar or schizophrenia spectrum disorders. So bipolar symptoms showing up, schizophrenic symptoms showing up, self-harm issues, hallucinations that continue even after the quote-unquote high wears off. All sorts of complications because it is messing with the human brain. Because this stuff is really strong. 15%. That's a lot. And when you think about it in terms of what's out there, you know, in Tennessee, you can sell Delta 8 products, Delta 10 products. Delta 9 has to be 0.3% or lower, because Delta 9 is really potent stuff. The problem is, in our town, at vape stores that, by the way, are not carding minors, we know that because we've seen that happen. If you walk into some of these vape stores that are selling products like this cake brand THC dab pen, it's going to say that it's Delta 8, but when you test it, we tested it with the TBI. When you test these products and you look for the Delta 8 is nowhere to be found. Delta 9, however, rings in at 77.9%. This is illegal in the state of Tennessee. You can buy them everywhere. And that's common across the board. Not even what's on the box is actually in the product. A lot of times, as advertised, you don't know what you're going to get. So like I'm saying, especially when it comes to THC, you've got a student that's like, hey, this is my brand. I know how to use this. I understand how my body works with this product. They use it a couple times. They buy the same thing, the same product they think, and all of a sudden it hits different. And it's very powerful. Not to mention the fact that THC is causing not just complications when it comes to kids getting in trouble and losing opportunities, getting removed from going to school with their friends, having to go to alternative school, getting kicked off sports teams, the health issues, but the way that it's affecting the mind and causing kids to make bad decisions. So when you think about this story here, back when marijuana was legalized across the board in Colorado, they pretty much opened Pandora's box. A group of college guys from Wyoming drove down to Denver, and they decided, hey, let's go check this out. It's legal. Let's go party. It's spring break. Let's live it up. So they get a hotel room, and they're hanging out. Let's go to one of these shops. They go in there. They don't really know or understand much about this culture, and they're asking questions, and they decide to get some edibles. If you don't know what an edible is, it's a food product that's got THC in it. So, and these aren't just like weed brownies from back in the day. This is like synthetic, injected food materials that are very potent. So the shop owner tells them, he's like, hey, look, this is different than smoking weed. If you're going to get this, you need to cut it up in 6 equal parts. So they're like, cool. They get it. They get some other stuff. They go back to the hotel room. They do what he says. They cut it up in equal parts. Each of them take one. And they wait. Because they don't understand that when you vape, it's hitting your lungs and in your bloodstream that way. And edible is processed through your digestive system and processed in your liver. It's going to take about 45 minutes to an hour for it to hit, but when it hits hard. But being a college guy, you're sitting there and thinking, you know what, I don't feel anything. It's been a few minutes, I don't feel anything. So what does he do? He opens an entire other edible cookie, all right, pops it in his mouth, eats the entire thing. About an hour down the road, he's absolutely uncontrollable. His friends, who are high at the time now as well, are trying to get him to settle down, trying to keep him in the room because he's trying to escape the room. They figure, hey, if we get him in bed and we can just let him sleep it off, that's going to help him. So they get him settled down, think he's asleep. Problem is, he might have been asleep, but his brain and his body is still high. He wakes up middle of the night. They can't keep him in the room at that point, and he leaps to his death off the balcony. Now, a lot of people are going to be like, weed doesn't kill people. Weed doesn't, cause overdoses. I guess it depends on who you talk to. And the more that the potency in the THC goes up, there's going to be more. Here's the thing. Whether or not the science is out there as far as like THC overdose, whole other issue. We're talking about inebriation. We're talking about people that are incapacitated. We're talking about people that are not thinking clearly, that are not making rational decisions. He used a product that put him in a place where he was completely out of his head. And it led to his death. This is strong stuff. It is nothing to play with. Not to mention, there's a symptom or a health risk now that doctors are actually diagnosing based on symptoms that you as a parent need to be aware of. Because if you suspect that your son or daughter is using THC, you need to be very aware. Because CHS, or cannabinoid hyperemesis syndrome, is very serious. I encourage you to read up on it a little bit. But THC users, over time, they're developing symptoms that are really, really complicating things for their entire body. So what happens? These symptoms often are persistent nausea, especially in the morning. They wake up feeling really sick, repeated vomiting, uncontrollable vomiting, not normal vomiting. In fact, they're coining a term now called scromiting, which is a mix of screaming while vomiting because the abdominal pain is so severe and so intense. It affects their appetite. It affects basically their chemical balance. It affects their hydration. So dehydration, electrolyte imbalance, malnutrition, weight loss, tooth decay, choking, injury to esophagus, all dangers that can be very serious, even life-threatening if they go too far. But here's one that was very curious to me. Scald burns from using very hot water. One of the symptoms, a strange symptom of CHS, is chronic hot bathing. Sounds strange. But when people are in such severe pain in their abdomen, when they are feeling so very nauseous, when they're constantly throwing up and just feel terrible, people with CHS tend to sit in as hot of water as they can find for as long as they can. Shower in as hot of water as they can for as long as they can. Heating up water and dipping towels and laying it over the top of them and just trying to soothe themselves. So, as a parent, you've got to know about this stuff. You've got to understand that there's some major health risks. It's not just weed. It's not just weed. This is a high-powered chemical substance with THC in it. And the more they use it, the more it affects them. The more it affects them, the more you've got to just really be on guard. If they're throwing up a lot, if, things to look out for, dark or very little pee, sudden confusion or delirium, dizziness, fatigue or unexplained sleepiness, quickened heart rate, rapid breathing, fainting, if they're complaining of abdominal pain constantly. Here's the thing. You got to get them checked out. And doctors are beginning to diagnose this. We all have to be on guard. Here's the thing. These kids are using this stuff and nobody's even aware. When you think about products like this, you take the cartridge off of this, maybe you have like younger kids that play the game Five Nights at Freddy's or whatever. You've heard them talk about it probably. That sitting there just looks like just an average little toy. You add the cart to it, well, it's definitely a dab pen. Think about this. A highlighter, that's really a dab pen. And the thing is, it's like, if any of us wanted to go buy these products, we could walk into a vape store, we could buy them legally, we can use them, not have to hide it, whatever. This is not marketed to us. This is marketed to a younger generation that needs to hide it. And you would be astounded at the products that are out there that help kids use these products in clandestine ways. Down to having hoodies that have drawstrings with vapes built into them. It's absolutely insane. So, be aware. Understand the risks. Not only with vaping, but here's another thing that you need to get ahead of the issue of edibles. Because vaping is, across the board, just off the charts as far as usage right now. More than likely in the next year or two, edibles are probably going to overtake vaping in popularity. Why? Because it's maybe a little bit easier to hide. I don't know. You have different arrays of products. You have even higher percentage, potency with, the THC usage. But some of these edibles, obviously you can see the way that they are branded and packaged. Anybody that looks at that understands, though it says Stony Patch Kid, our brain lets us know that's what Sour Patch Kids look like. And when you think about that in terms of children that aren't necessarily paying attention, or maybe don't really read as well yet, they're looking at the label, they're looking at what's presented, and they understand that those are Sour Patch Kids, that's candy, those are gummies. But when you think about it in terms of Colorado, between 2017 and 2019, the number of under 9 and under children, over 500 kids, 9 years old and under, went to the ER because they got into their parents' edibles. So we got to tell kids, look, you're going to see this stuff. Why? Because parents are leaving them about. Big brothers and big sisters have them. If they go over to other people's houses, there's no telling what's going to be sitting out. So we have to teach them things like this. That just because it looks like chocolate doesn't mean it's chocolate. This is drugs. Even this is Rocky Road flavored THC chocolate bar, right? But we have to tell kids when you see that symbol that is the international symbol for marijuana, that marijuana leaf. We got to help kids understand when you see this. I don't care if it looks like it's a bag of Doritos. Don't eat it because that's not for you. We've got to teach kids that when you see these packages like this, that's not fruit snacks, that's not, any sort of, Sour Patch Kid or whatever, that's drugs. You gotta tell them, look, open your eyes, read the label. If it says Delta 8, 9, or 10, Delta anything, that's not for you. Tell them to look at the packaging, because it's brightly colored and there might be a cartoonish looking character, but it still looks mean. Not to mention the monkey smoking a blunt on there. Helping them just open their eyes and understand what's on the package. Even here with these Pop Rocks, they're THC. We have to tell kids, like, look, when you see this triangle on the package, in the Greek alphabet, that's the letter Delta. So when you see the triangle on certain products now, you're going to have to know, okay, that probably stands for Delta 8, 9, or 10. That's probably not for you. That's probably drugs. Just leave it alone. And tell them it's not just what you eat, but it's what you drink. This is basically lemon lime weed Sprite. 25 milligrams a can. So you got the triangle, you got the 8 for Delta 8, you pour it out, it's clear. So that creates an issue for water bottles. So we tell kids, a rule for school, open it yourself. Tell them, hey, if somebody comes to you with a baggie full of gummy worms or gummy bears, don't eat that. One, gross. It's been in somebody's pocket probably for a while. That's disgusting. Open it yourself. Don't take a risk. Don't be taking drinks of anybody's water bottle. Like, open yours yourself. Use what you brought. Be safe. Be healthy. You think about this stuff, and it looks like just like any other energy drink. If these products are sitting out on somebody's table at somebody's house, and a kid doesn't know what to look for and they don't understand, I know my boys. If they see chocolate and they're not paying attention, they're not just eating one of these 6.5 milligram pieces. They're eating the whole thing, which means they're going to the ER. And how many people, if they see an open can of something, come by and they're going to take a swig of it? Kids have to know, they have to be educated. You have to know, you have to be educated. Because there's no room for error now. I don't want to take my kid to a hospital or find that my kid's in the hospital because they got into something. You don't either. I don't want my children to end up with a vaping-induced lung injury or cannabinoid hyperemesis syndrome where their esophagus is tore up, their body is all out of whack because of the amount of throwing up that they've been doing and just living miserably. We don't want that. I don't want my kid getting addicted to nicotine and having to battle that fierce addiction for years. I don't want my kids getting in trouble. I don't want them getting kicked out of school. I want them to be at their best, and I know you want yours to be at your best too. And overall, across the board, we want our kids safe. And so I encourage you guys to stop by the table. We'll answer any questions. I know there's probably raised a lot of questions with so many of you, and we'll take as much time as you need. But I'm going to turn it back over to Dr. Cash.
Actually,
Zeta.
it's me. Okay, so there was a lot for most of you, I'm sure, and it was for me too. I'm going to talk about a couple of things here in just a second. I am the grandmother raising 2 teenage sons because of addiction in their family, and it was my daughter, but so was their dad in addiction. So they were exposed to a lot of things before I got them, even though we were up close and personal. And they were doing things in my own home that I had no clue about. And I had to educate myself. And one of the things I had to do is I had to talk to them. I had to hear what they had to say. And that's the one thing I want to stress to you is have that talk. Talk to those kids. I didn't like it. Gosh, I was a preacher's kid. I was afraid of people who smoked cigarettes. This was new to me. I'm telling you, I had to learn the hard way. I'm 5 years into it now. I can flip a vape inside and out. I can tell you everything about them because I had to educate myself. I found them hidden in places you couldn't even begin to imagine. And the hidden in plain sight, if you didn't get a chance to go through that, you need to do that because they will hide these things anywhere. You can get that stuff off of Amazon. Okay, your kids can order from Amazon. If they have a check card, a Visa card, they can order those things. But the biggest issue that we find right now is what it's doing to our kids. I am up close and personal, and I saw it. I was that mother, that grandmother that found a vape in my bathroom and didn't really have a clue what it was, but I took it. They went crazy. But I watched them. I took it, I said, it's mine, you're not getting this back, you know the rules, 0 tolerance in my home. And they freaked out and panicked. But what I saw later was the anxiety, the headaches. One of them was in the bathroom, had to throw up, crying. You wouldn't believe what it does to them. And if you've seen these signs and these symptoms and you don't know what's causing it, gosh, they have enough anxiety out there anyway. This is not calming them down. Trust me, it is not calming them down. It is making the problem worse. You have to be alert. You have to look for these things because I'm telling you, it can be your star athlete that's doing this. It can be that straight A student, valedictorian, salutatorian. We're seeing it everywhere. We have a program in our community where we realize that the addiction sets in so quick with vapes, and it's because they don't know just how much nicotine that they're getting. That we decided to do a program. It took our law enforcement, our DA, juvenile court, our directors of schools, everybody had to be on board. And we started a program where it says citation, it's education before citation. We learned a lot in these classes when the kids had to come if they were caught with the nicotine vape. If they're caught with the THC, vapes, carts, the battery, anything, the charger, they do go straight to juvenile court because that is drug paraphernalia and there's 0 tolerance in our schools, as it should be. However, we have to help these kids. They don't even realize what's happened to them with this addiction. And in those classes, Jerry talked to you. He told you everything that we're learning that these kids tell us. We try to let them talk, give them a voice, and then we have to hear what they're saying. And one of the things they talk about all the time is the anxiety that they feel, the stress they feel that they're under, and they're using this as a coping mechanism. We have to come up with something different to teach them to use different things for these things that are bothering them because this is only making it worse. And I see it up close and personal, I'm telling you. One of the biggest house at 3 o'clock in the morning, he's aged out, so he doesn't live with me.
coming to my house at 3 o'clock in the morning because my water stays hotter than his does, to take bath after bath after bath, or shower after shower after shower. I told Jared one day, I said, I don't know what to do, because we know what this is. This is the 3rd time he's being diagnosed. But this was a new symptom, and it is part of what they see. And my background is medical, and it takes a long time for the AMA, the American Medical Association, to give something credibility enough to give it a diagnosis code. It now has a diagnosis code. So it's happening, and it's getting our kids. He was a good kid. He graduated by the skin of his teeth. Thank you, Jesus. But we had to work hard because he was struggling, and he had his own issues that he was struggling with, and they were using this to cope. But I just wanted to share that with you because I just want to stress that it can be your kid too, and you don't even know it. It can be your star athlete, and you don't even know it. And that's what we're seeing. It's good kids. These are good kids, guys, and we want to help them the best that we can, but we need your help. So that's what I'm supposed to be talking about while I'm up here, is we want you guys to join our social media campaign. We are fixing to kick this off big time. We did our press release just last week, but we need you guys to go, and if you don't like already on social media, Facebook or Instagram, join Cleveland City Schools, Bradley County Schools, ATS The Bridge, and help us push this message out. We will be doing 2 different posts every week. We need you guys to share it. We need you to talk about this in your schools. We need you to invite us to your PTO meetings. Let us come in and talk to your parents. We are embedded in our schools, and we are so grateful and thankful for that. We love partnering with Bradley County and Cleveland City Schools, and we also go to other schools around the community because you know what? This is not just a problem here. This is a problem statewide and nationwide. And we are getting calls all the time to come in and share what we're doing here because we are going to be proactive and instead of reactive. It looks like we're a little reactive, but you know what? We've got amazing kids that are standing up in our schools, taking a stand, and that was our campaign this year, is standing up for our kids, for our family, for our community, for our teams. And we need you parents to get involved and jump on board, and you educators. So we need you to get other parents involved. That's why we're doing this today, is to educate you, because I didn't know. We can't expect that everybody knows. And this is our world that we walk in. You would think we were drug dealers the way we walk and talk about it, but we have to educate ourselves. We do get a lot of our education because we have a Drug and Dangerous Children Alliance through ATS The Bridge from the TBI Dangerous Drugs Task Force. They will come and talk to you too. You just have to let us know. We don't just get stuff off of the internet. We are very, very educated, and we want to stress that with you guys. Another thing that we really, really want you guys to do is to start those discussions at home. Talk with your kids. It's okay to talk about these things. Nobody likes to talk about them, but we have to. Because we get called into elementary schools because a 2nd grader brought their vape to school. Jared probably touched on that. And it's not that they are using it, but it's that they saw an older sibling or a mom and dad. And they just picked it up, they thought it was cool, thought it would be the great thing to do, but you know what? They get in trouble for that. And then we have to go in sometimes and have this discussion with them and talk to them about why it's not okay. And if you're an adult and you're a vapor in here, you know what? You're an adult. We're talking about our kids here. And there's no judgment. We love to go into our alternative schools here because they're full of kids who have gotten in trouble because they've come to school and got caught with the THC vape. That's when they end up in our alternative schools. I can't even talk. And we have to remind them that that doesn't have to define their future. And every day they get up and they get to make new choices. And we love it when we go in there and they are telling us, they come up to us to tell us that, hey, I'm 2 weeks clean, I haven't vaped, or I haven't smoked weed, haven't done any of these things in 2 weeks. You know what? I say, let's have cake. I mean, that's great. That's a big deal for them, and I love cake. But we want to celebrate, and we have to celebrate those little bitty milestones because, guys, that's a lot for them. Some of these kids have been doing this since they were 11 and 12 years old. Some of these kids, their parents buy them for them, okay? I hate to say that, but these parents buy them for them. It's just easier to do. And sometimes you lose it and you bust into a vape store because you saw them just sell to your grandson and you lose it. That was me. That was me. But you know what? I'm fed up. I'm tired. I'm fed up. I'm tired of seeing what it does to these kids. I promise you, it is not good for them. And if your kid's acting erratic, I mean, you know, check their room when they're going to school, see what you can find. I was shocked at when I learned all that I learned by just taking the time to really talk to them and to hear what they were saying and then observing on my own. So, is there any, I think it's time for questions, I guess.
Yeah.
Thank y'all very much.
I think you've got a list of fact sheets that you have, but you also have resources that are in your handouts. And like I said, what we're looking for right now is awareness and giving you power. Talk to your children, talk to your neighbors. I'm 100% sure that ATS Bridge can make themselves available to come to the schools, to your PTO meetings, to civic organizations, anything that you think would help us help our children. And we're asking you to stand up. I know that together we are all concerned. We're concerned not just for today, but for the future of our children. I would tell you, I've raised 3 boys, and I was the crazy mom. When I found something, like I would just lose it, you know, strip the rooms. I mean, I did everything, but what I failed to do was simply sit down and have a conversation with them. That always came later. What I'm telling you is have the conversations with them, show them the reality of what they're doing, because they are being targeted by social media. They're being targeted by companies because this is big business. It's the same thing as tobacco. This is big business and it's big money. Reach out to your legislatures about, hey, we have a problem. Can you help us? Because it's going to have to come from the national level to change some of the laws, especially with the social media targeting of our kids. And I just thank you for being here and want you to know you can reach out to me. I'm learning more every day. Every time I listen to ATS The Bridge, I am amazed about the work they do. Special thank you to Steve Wright for sponsoring ATS The Bridge and their board. And again, we're going to let you ask questions, but I'll let Dr. Elliott kind of speak, and then any questions y'all have, we'll be here to answer. Please look at this. This is shocking to me, what they disguise them as, and then you have the room that's in plain sight.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing all the information that they've had to share. And just a couple of years ago, my wife's cousin's 10-year-old son was in Texas at an elementary school. And just on a day that they had reward day and all got a treat to hand out to them. And the treat that was handed out to him was Stony Patch candy. And he thought it was Sour Patch. And within just a few minutes after eating that candy and that snack, he was being rushed to the hospital that evening because a parent had grabbed snacks from their home and gathered them up, and in the midst of the other candy stack with a Stony Patch candy. And just like that, a 10-year-old. Thank goodness, after a day in the hospital, he was able to be okay. But it's amazing, just like that. It affects high school kids, but also elementary kids as well. So we just always have to be very vigilant and just be thinking of those conversations. I have a 13-year-old daughter and goes to Cleveland Middle School. And just the reality of the conversations we have to have each day about what are you looking out for. Jared mentioned about the water bottle. My daughter takes a water bottle every day. I said, do not let anybody drink out of yours, and you do not take a sip out of anybody else's container. It's real, and it starts with us right here. So thank you all for coming. Really, again, hats off to ATS The Bridge and all that they're doing to get the word out. Thank you.
I do want you, Dawn Cox is actually organizing and leading this for us, and I wanted her to talk to you about what we're doing and what our next steps are.
All right, so I was brought on board as the director of school-based mental health, and so a lot of what they alluded to is what else can we do? Like some of these kids are facing anxiety, depression, some of this is trauma related. So we're saying stop this, but when you say stop this, you got to introduce something else, okay? We got to have some fun that they're able to engage in that hits a different part of their brain, does good dopamine that doesn't take from them. We got to be having resources out there for them. Teaching right now, we've been able to hire in extra school counselors, we've been able to hire in social workers, letting them be okay if they need to go see somebody, to go talk, to get extra resources, to get extra counseling at times. So all those are things that are in our school, and we just want you to have as many contacts as you can. There's contacts from Cleveland City and also contacts from Raleigh County. We want to be here to support you. So right now there's been a lot of information thrown at you, and so we want to answer questions, but also you might be like me, and I need a little time to process and chew on things, and then I start having all these ideas come up. So if you have that, but you don't have people fired up at your school yet, email us. We will come to your school. We will help get people fired up because our kids are being targeted, and that's not okay. And that's what we're leading this charge. We're going to be educating our coaches. We're going to be educating our PE teachers. Our coordinated school health, they have been in our schools trying to beat this drum. ATS, the bridge has been here over 8 years trying to beat this drum. Now we're here and our kids are heavily targeted. We've got to start beating the drum too, okay? Like, we've got to start having conversations. We've got to start educating. So our PE teachers are going to be on board. Our coaches are going to be on board. In March, we're going to be having sessions with ATS the Bridge with our school counselors, our social workers. And then in April, we're doing a big charge with our students. So everything that you're seeing and hearing, get behind us, echo it. And echo it in a way like some of you all are parents and you have friends that are battling this with their kids. Walk with them. These are not good or bad kids. These are good or bad decisions. Okay? So walk with them. Help support them. And that's part of what's coordinated school health. The resources you have, that's what they're trying to put together. So that way, if there are people that are wanting to quit or prevent people from going down this path, you have those resources in your hand. Okay? And part of this initiative, we're hoping that we come out and create more resources locally because we need it. We need that. So I want to open it up for a minute for you all to ask some questions, comments that you have.
It's more probably, I'm just wondering what the secondhand, if we're getting any kind of results back there, because as a parent and a substitute, I'm seeing so many more kids that are sick all the time, just sick. And I'm just trying to figure out if there is a correlation because I mean, we know that secondhand smoke is bad for you, but I've seen a couple brief things where it says almost that the person sitting next to the person that's vaping is getting the worst end of it. And I'm just trying to figure out if y'all have any information on that or
We're going back to the illicit drug conference in April. I'm hoping that studies come out on that. But we know that secondhand smoke from regular cigarettes is bad. It has to be for vapes as well. Because you're talking about chemicals that are inhaled and the residue exhaled. There's no way it's healthy. And especially when you're talking about a lot of little kids where parents are probably doing this in the car and there's no way to get away from it. You know, so in the home a lot of times it can't be healthy. I don't have an exact science to put to it yet.
We're just now, there's enough data now that we actually can get stats, which is good because vaping is new, but they thought it was just this and that. Now that we know more, we're able to start getting better stats. And we don't just throw numbers at you to throw them at you. They have to be verified. And we wanted to do a survey of our own schools, but unfortunately in the state of Tennessee, we can't do that right now without going through a lot. But we're trying to figure it out because I would love to know between with our own students what we're looking at. That would help us. I mean, y'all want to know that.
Where are these food items produced?
Where are they produced?
Yes. What does it say on the package? Where are they produced?
Yeah, a lot of them are going to come from states where it's full on legalized, from California and Colorado.
Does it say where they're produced?
So yeah, it'll say where it's produced. So this one is from Santa Ana, California.
Okay.
But a lot of it, when you look at packaging and stuff, it's nice packaging, but a lot of these products aren't going to be produced in a factory. Think more like a basement or a warehouse, because the way, specifically, a lot of this like THC oil is produced, the way that it's processed. The processing of THC can be just as dangerous as a meth. The way that it's processed and the chemicals they use in creating the resin that will, turn into the dab wax or some of the oils or some of the, the injections into the food items. They're seeing explosions, especially in places like Colorado where it's just kind of wide open there. Houses are being blown off their rafters, so to speak. So it's not a fancy, clean lab. It's not. Oftentimes, there's going to be corporations that are doing it, but oftentimes it is in pretty less than ideal situations where it's not going to be very clean.
Regulation.
And it's not regulated, and that's why. So they can produce the product and package it well, but it's not made anywhere that's going to sanitary.
And like she said, the thing about this, and this should get every one of you fired up in here, it is not regulated. There is a particular vape I have up here that it's been outlawed for a couple of years, but you can walk into a vape store and they still have them. Because nobody goes around and makes sure that nobody's enforcing this. There's no true regulation. And that is what I think we're trying real hard to fight too. We met with legislators, our directors of schools. We started there first, and they know we're fired up here in Radnor County, Cleveland, City of Cleveland. We are fired up here, and we are making waves across our state. We were just told that by our TBI director. So we are trying to do what we can from that point, but getting parents upset and, you walk into a vape store, tell them you're upset. You're tired of what they're doing. Yes.
Are you going to be doing this presentation for parents for all schools?
We will do. We are in the schools, already been in most of your schools, but yes, we are doing this presentation. And if you want us to come to your PTO meeting, we're going into youth groups, churches, everywhere you want us. We are doing it. Yeah. We do.
Are you guys doing this for like sports, like athletic groups, like to talk to kids?
So we
Or is that allowed?
that's part of the reason why we're talking to these coaches. And we have talked to some sports teams. Sorry.
So one of the things that we want, and of course we have to, parents of athletes, what we're moving to, we're going to educate our coaches in both systems, and then we want the parents to, we hope, because to have a mandatory meeting about vaping, and the athletes honestly believe that this makes them a better athlete, stronger, faster, and that's the rumor that's out there, or I guess, I don't know but they really believe that. And so that first is our coaches, then our students, and we would really love parents. It's going to be a mandatory meeting because it is, and they hide it so well. I mean, it's just, so that is one of our goals to hit, to hit everybody. What else?
Can you talk to us about beyond education, what the schools are implementing, like vape smoke detectors in the bathrooms? I've heard last week a high school limiting, using the bathroom in between, because I know there's a lot of exchanging happen. What else is happening?
So I can only, and I think we both can talk about it. Every time we shut down an area, or monitor an area really close, they find another area to go to and smoke or do whatever. So we are on an initiative to put vape detectors in all bathrooms. But what that does to our staff is that now they're chasing down, and our SRs, they're chasing all of that down. But what we want it to be is so inconvenient for you to even try to do it that you don't want to do it in school, but they will find a way. But with that, it's really educating them, targeting them. We have hotlines, and our kids will turn it in on the hotline. They don't want people to know they're telling, but they will tell us somebody has a vape or somebody has THC. So we've got the mechanisms in place to begin heavy use. And when we talk about the bathrooms, let me be very clear. We are not stopping anybody from going to the bathroom. We are regulating when you go, and what we're trying to do is, because they were going to the bathrooms and they were smoking and they were sharing, I think we heard that they shared, and that's where the young man who had the double lung, he was sharing vapes. We're trying to close down their access. So teachers will take them, or you have to give up your cell phone before you go, which none of them want to do, by the way. So we're trying to take measures, but also our biggest thing is we have to empower the students and the student ambassadors to be boots on the ground, to talk to their friends about this is not good for you. These kids are addicted. It's no longer a fad. They're addicted. And unfortunately, if you take a hit from one that might have fentanyl in it, you never meant to do that. So it's educating, it's talking, it's empowering our students, but also monitoring wherever we are. But they can find the strangest places. But yeah, monitoring those and putting those in the bathrooms. They are expensive. So we're looking for grants. We're looking for anything we can just as a deterrent. And that's what we want, is to deter it to happen in the schools.
Yeah, a lot of things like Dr. Cash is saying are methods that we're using in our schools as well. We have halo devices that are in the restrooms that set off alarm, and it alerts our assistant principals and administrators of what's going on possibly there, so they can react to that and respond to that. But really, like Dr. Cash said, educating our students and those individuals being the ones to, if they see something or know something, to report that. We have an app that our students have on all their devices, their computers when they're issued, and our iPads when middle school students receive those. It's an app that comes up on their screen that are reported. It's called the Stop It app. And we really encourage students when they see something of this nature or other issues arise. It's anonymous reporting. It goes to the administrator, and then the administrator can investigate that. So those are some of the other things that we're trying to do to keep the word out for our students to know and be able to report this stuff, but be able to do it in an anonymous way.
I want to say something real quick. My name is Rachel Gollins. I'm a board member of ATS The Bridge, and I want to touch a little bit on what Jared said about marijuana and how it leads to other addictions. I wished I was you 15 or 17 years ago and had an organization like ATS The Bridge to come into the school and talk about what marijuana does and what it leads to later on. Because from 18 to 24, my son struggled with addiction that ultimately took his life. So he was one of 47,000 in 2017 that lost his life to an opioid fentanyl overdose. But it started when a family member gave him marijuana at the age of 12. So you guys are very fortunate to have this, to be educated, to know what to look for, what to listen to, what to see, to prevent what I've had to go through. And this is the reason why I stand up. And I am so fortunate to be a part of this, but also get to go to speak to the school's Goal Academy specifically. And I also get to go in and do juvenile ministry on Sundays, because I've been where a lot of parents are. They've been in denial and they don't understand. I wished I would have been educated, but I wasn't, because I didn't have an organization like ATS The Bridge. So take this information, learn as much as you possibly can, ask those questions, because kids don't like to be questioned, but ask them anyways. And love them no matter what, and get them the help that they need.
Thank you. What other questions, comments? Yeah. It's a hard reality, but I think you all showing up, these groups showing up, that's powerful, and that's what's going to get people's attention too, is people showing up and consistently saying, we want something different, okay? We know now, we know something different, so let's do something different, and that's what you all are doing. And so, giving your email address, as we are rolling campaigns out and doing things each month, you all will get updates, so you all know what's going to be coming, what we're going to be doing in our schools.
So be watching for those. And again, any way we can rally around you and with you, that's what we want to do because it's a community. This is our community and we need to stand up for it. And we need to stand alongside people who are trying to get our attention. And we have students that are wanting to do that too because they're tired of seeing their friends suffer. So let's stand up with ATS Bridge, let's stand up with our students, and let's stand up as a community.
Thank you.
Yes!
I actually forgot to tell you where the bathrooms